Hi everyone, greetings to you from my campus office. With so many alternative ideologies in this week's chapter, I want to take a few minutes to share a deeper explanation of the feminist political ideology. As you read about in chapter 7, feminism is a belief in the social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. Feminism is both a political ideology and a social movement. It is a relatively recent phenomenon, although the feminist movement has made great strides over the last 2 centuries, at least in the West. The task of realizing gender equality for all genders is still a work in progress. Much institutionalized discrimination may have been formally removed, but long ingrained and often unconscious attitudes are harder to erase. Women still face all sorts of indignity and prejudice, from the glass ceiling and lower pay at work to unthinking assumptions about capacities and roles at home and in society. No country is free of sexism, and in some parts of the world, discrimination on grounds of gender is still explicitly sanctioned by law. During the European Renaissance, or the first wave of feminism, there had been a long-running debate about women, which was often more little than a literary mock battle in which the case for women, refutation of the charge that they are innately frivolous and inferior, was argued elegantly but to little effect. In England, the person usually credited with injecting passion and urgency into this rather sterile debate was Mary Wollstonecraft. In her writing in A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, she makes a spirited plea for justice and equality for the oppressed half of the species. She discussed the idea that if only women were allowed the same opportunities as men, they would prove to be no less intelligent and less able. Up until the 1920s, feminist energies were focused quite narrowly on the business of winning the right to vote. This activism, which included boycotts and hunger strikes on both sides of the Atlantic, soon became the hallmark of feminism. Winning the right to vote was a major triumph for feminism, but in almost every area of life, Western societies were still riddled with sex-based inequalities. At the first Women's Rights Convention held in the United States in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848, a resolution was passed demanding that women be granted equal participation with men in the various trades, professions, and commerce. More than 70 years later, it was painfully clear that little progress had been made towards the goal. The feminist movement took a new period of hope and crisis into the 1960s, the era of civil rights, Vietnam, hippie culture, and student protests, to kickstart the second wave. All at once, 1,000 new initiatives aimed at 1,000 perceived injustices sprang up everywhere. Liberal or mainstream feminists had tended to take a pragmatic line, aiming for strict equality with men in every area. One of the primary tasks for them was to eradicate any form of discrimination. Alongside the liberal feminists, there had always been more radical voices. Later feminists questioned whether strict equality with men was what they should be fighting for in any case. For many, outdoing men on their own terms, playing them at their own games, was not enough. As the 20th century drew to a close, a third wave of feminism emerged, motivated in part by the perceived shortcomings of earlier feminists. The new movement represented a modulation of tone as much as a change in substance. The most persistent fault of the second wave, in spite of its motivations of a global sisterhood, was that it failed to fully comprehend the needs and aspirations of Black women. I would make the case that the feminist movement is still in progress today, along with the civil rights movement and many other social movements to cure injustices in this world. I hope this video clarified the different waves of feminism in more detail. If you have any questions, please reach out.